Tom, thank you for joining us this evening.
Good to be here with you this evening. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. If you don't mind, we're going to go ahead and jump into the questions this evening. We are rolling right along here. All right.
Sounds good.
You may have heard some of the questions we asked Lee earlier. We're going to ask the same ones to you. So the first one, Tom, is Governor Lee recently issued Executive Order number 15. Among the provisions in that order include the ability for nurse practitioners to practice with autonomy. What's your position on the expansion of the scope of practice for non-physician providers like nurse practitioners and physician assistants?
I have opposed that and have, of course, spoken to the nurses about it. They visited me several times during the session, as you might imagine, and have let them know my position. And what I've told them is that I believe the additional schooling, training, residency that the doctors have to go through must mean something. And so I tell them I'm not putting them down, but that must be worth something. And therefore, I don't believe they should have that same scope of practice unsupervised without the training. Again, they'll say, we are trained to do all of this. Well, then why are we requiring the doctors to do so much more if it doesn't mean anything, if it has no value? And they really don't have an answer to that. And again, I'm not against the nurses, they're good people, do good jobs. I wish I could be with them on this. But again, for the reasons I just said, I do oppose that, and I've let them know that.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. We'll move right on into the second question. This pandemic has forced a lot of us to make some difficult decisions. It forces business owners, parents, policymakers like yourself, and pretty much all of us to balance things like our personal physical health and the health of our community with economic and financial health and that desire to get us back to business. We hear that phrase a lot. Can you talk about your thought process when you're faced with these types of challenges?
Yes, and like with many people, it's been evolving based on information we were given eventually at the beginning, as well as the facts that have come to light over time. I understand Governor Lee's executive orders and positions early on. We were told that the hospitals were going to be overrun. Doctors were going to have to choose, does Clint get the respirator or does George get the respirator? One of you's going to die. And of course, that never happened. So I understand those decisions early on, but we have more data now, and we see who the more vulnerable populations are and who they aren't. I agree with what the governor has been saying now. One, no state mandate on the masks, leaving that up more to the locals, and that he is not looking to shut the economy down again like we did. And I agree with that. I believe unless things get a whole lot worse than they are, we cannot go back to where we were. There are health problems with that. We saw it with increased suicides, people dying from other conditions, heart attacks and so forth, because they weren't getting the medical treatment that they normally would have. So there are health risks to totally shutting down like we did as well, plus the financial aspect that doesn't just hit the locally owned restaurant, but the hospitals and healthcare facilities, outpatient surgical centers. The health industry took a big economic hit as well. So again, to reiterate, I think it's going to have to get, in my view, would need to get a whole lot worse than it is now before we go back to shutting down the economy, and not just for economic reasons, but for the health reasons I alluded to as well.
All right, thank you. So we're going to kind of stay on the economic front just a little bit. Inevitably, our state's going to continue to face economic challenges due to some revenue decreases associated with the pandemic. How do you prioritize these inevitable cuts, and would you cut healthcare during that process?
Um, Bottom line, yeah, I would not cut healthcare. and I don't think we will have to. Thankfully, Tennessee has been very conservatively run for a long time. You know, we've got the great bond ratings from all the different agencies. We've got over $1 billion in the rainy day fund. And even though some, mainly Democrats, wanted us to go in and start drawing from the rainy day fund, we actually added to it in the budget, which I think is good. In last year's budget that just ended the end of June, I think we had like a $500 million gap. We took care of that. And we've also passed a budget going forward that has been adjusted for decreased revenue projections. All that to say, we took care of the budget year that just ended. We believe we've taken care of the current budget year we're in. I don't think it's inevitable that we're going to have more budget cuts. I know, talking to leadership and the governor, what we are hoping is that we can continue opening up and get closer at least to where we were. We were running such strong surpluses that we really don't have to get back to where we were, because those were huge surpluses. If we just get part of the way back to where we were, especially since we've reduced the budget, then we should be okay with the budget we've established through this year. So I think if things stay on the course they're on now, even though we've got an increase in cases, we're going to be fine for the budget year we are in. And then hopefully we pull out of this. Even if we don't pull out of it till the spring, again, if we just get close to where we were before, and I'm not making a prediction here because it would sound crazy, but who knows, we might even end up with $1 or $2 to spare next spring. But again, that's assuming things don't get worse and we don't have to totally shut down again. If we totally shut down again, it's just going to be a difficult situation, and I'm thankful the governor has said it's going to have to get real, real bad before we go back to that. So hopefully we don't have to make any more cuts. If we do, healthcare has to be at the bottom. If people don't have their health, what do you got, you know?
Okay. Well, that's all of our questions, Tom. We have some time left. Are there other issues you want to bring up or any general comments you want to make?
Well, of course, this isn't my first rodeo. I'm sure y'all know I was in state senate 92 to 2000, and I'm not completely shooting from the hip on budget talk. I was on finance committee 92 to, well, not the full 92 to 2000, but part of my tenure there. I was on finance committee, and we had to go through budget cuts then. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. You know, my first session, at the beginning of this session, I was telling the younger members, you guys are just real good spending the money now, but sooner or later, we need to be careful of the obligations we make, because sooner or later, there's going to be a downturn. And I've gone through a downturn in state government before. And they're like, oh, you know, surpluses, everything's great. Little did I know how deep it would be and how quick it would come. But all that to say, not my first rodeo. I've got that experience. But mainly, I've got a long-term proven record of working with y'all. So I'm not an unknown. You know, we've been friends, and it's just worked well. And I know my opponent would like to make that kind of nefarious, but what it really comes down to, I think we're very like-minded. And that translates into the actions I take in the legislature. So at any rate, I've got a proven record and a long-term relationship with y'all, and hope to continue it.
All right. Well, Tom, thanks for the time tonight. Glad you were able to join us, and good luck to you on the campaign trail. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank y'all very much.
Yep.